So you've met Martin already. In the middle there, Farooq Sheikh, who's the global head of banking and insurance healthcare at Unqork, and Grant, to my nearest to me, Grant Dewar, who's client services director at Aon. Sorry, more Brits in the room. The title of this is Ecosystems, Partnerships in Practice. I feel like I'm a bit far away. I'll come and join you.
Get closer, please.
Yeah. Farooq, we're going to start with you. So, I'm always intrigued slightly by this question of ecosystems. Codependency is working with lots of partners, outsourcing, using SaaS. We've all always had to deal with lots of other companies in order to be able to deliver an insurance product. What's changed? Why suddenly is everybody obsessed with ecosystems and this whole sense of, working together and playing nicely together?
It's a great question, right? This is the funny part about insurance. It was the original ecosystem business, right? This was always about risk transfer. It was always about how do you specialize in underwriting versus balance sheet versus reinsurance versus claims, right? So you always had that, the original ecosystem business, so to speak, from an insurance perspective, and pooling of risk, as Gary mentioned. And now, for a long time, the technology side lagged behind, right? We kind of left it to the insurers, to the brokers to figure it out individually, within the context of their four walls, right? And that led to this whole conversation we were having where it's difficult to get things done or get data out and so forth. And I think as we're looking at it from an industry perspective, it's starting to come full circle. Why not kind of think a little bit more about the technology ecosystem? Why not go directly with that pre-built ecosystem view, whether it's data, whether it's the technology side, whether it's the brokerage side, whether it's all the kind of CAT modeling elements and so forth, pre-built it, and then take it to the insurers. What's the value in for the insurers trying to do it on their own, right? Like why does each insurer need to figure out how to make technology work together? That's not their business, right? And let them focus on what is their differentiation, which is around underwriting expertise, understanding the decisions they need to make, managing the risk, for example. So that's kind of the trend in the technology side.
I think most insurers will be honest enough to say that certainly wasn't a strength of theirs. So how do you then set about building an ecosystem? I mean, you could deal with literally thousands of people. What do you look for in an ecosystem partner? Is it driven by your customers? Is it driven by you? How do you get the balance right?
It's a great question, right? So some level of complementary capabilities are always important. But I think it comes down to like being able to work together for the benefit of your customers, right? If you put the customers in the middle of the conversation, everything becomes simple. As soon as you get into a conversation that's more about owning and protecting and defending and creating friction, it becomes very challenging. So the key to an ecosystem, building the ecosystem, operating one, in the insurance space and beyond, it's all about thinking about the customer in the middle of the ecosystem.
Martin, same question to you. You have an ecosystem with details of your partners on the website. To what extent do you go out and pre-select people because they will make your other software more attractive, or are you 100% customer focused? I mean, what's the strategy that underpins your approach?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. Actually, a colleague up there, Simon, and the last probably 6 months, we've been to a number of different events. A great opportunity to sort of meet a lot of different sort of vendors and understand, what they've got to offer. Some, smaller organisations as well are very innovative, and they're doing that. So we got opportunities to talk to them and understand what they're doing, and you're really looking for, the best in class of whatever that is. That be data integration or whatever. So it's on that side, and then I think on the other side is when you're actually implementing for a customer, they've already, probably invested and chosen, a number of really great organisations that work really well for them. So then there's a great opportunity to actually pick those up as well and bring those into your ecosystem.
Grant, you also Aon big ecosystem strategy. Your ecosystem has to be slightly different. You can't just sit there with a bit of technology and go and work out complementary partners to work with. So So how do you, what underpins your strategy? How do you select your partners and why?
I think it's getting that combination between sort of technology ecosystem and broker ecosystems. And
Put your microphone a bit higher. No, that's right. Okay.
Can you hear me now? I think it's getting that that blend of the sort of technology ecosystems and the broker ecosystems. And I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that they we should be working symbiotically. Some of the points here about collaboration. I've got my black Levi InsurTech jeans on, but I've got my broker shiny shoes on. To cover that aspect of it. That's either collaboration or poor fashion sense. You can make your own minds up about that. But it's really about that collaboration. When you look at what Aon does, I guess it has two sides of how its operations that we're bringing together. On the one side, it has, as a broker, it has vast broker databases. It has huge analytics capabilities. It has huge amounts of market knowledge through the advisory and the consulting services. And the second facet is it has, this industrialized software that Andy referred to earlier around pricing, capital modeling, and reserving, and it's bringing those together, and that's where we're looking at our partners and people we're looking to work with. We've talked about unstructured data. The fact of the matter is that some of these submissions do come in as PDF formats and are unstructured, but Aon doesn't have this need to build everything itself. So we see collaborating with people like Unqork, AdvantageGo, Indico, other organisations, as our way of distributing to the market. So we will use the great technologies that those organisations bring to the table to help us integrate our own solutions. We don't need to build the workflow. We don't need to build the integration pipelines. But then on the other side, we'll then look to how we work with some of the sort of market platform providers. About how, and Andy didn't want to use the word distribution, but how we distribute out to the marketplace. So it's really all about integrating the products and solutions, and then a distribution to make doing business with Aon a lot easier.
So tell me about your partnership with Farooq and Unqork, because you're not just sitting next to each other on a panel. You actually work together. What's going on?
Well, I mean, certainly Unqork already working with Aon, with another part of Aon that I'm sure Farooq can tell you more about. We've begun discussions with Farooq and a number of other organisations. We've come back to the great underwriting workbench question again. So, our sort of vision is, how do we get to the situation where, a broker goes to his underwriting workbench terminal, turns the screen on, and the data he needs to do business, the policy documents, the renewal documentation, the rating factors, the risk factors are already there, and it's already been technically priced. So how do we bring that to the underwriter so that they can just sit there and start making business decisions, not doing data management, data integration? It's all about that, and how do we get that out to the underwriter for them to start making informed risk decisions?
We've got a little InsTech diagram, and it has a data ingestion capability, and it has a workbench, and then it has models, and then it has pricing, and then it has admin, and then it has. You could all. With a right ecosystem approach, you could put all those things together, and you could have straight off the shelf the ability to take in your data in any format, run it through a process, augment with third-party data. Isn't that the dream? Isn't everybody going to work on that? And then, give me your thoughts generally about where that might be of most value. And I'm thinking particularly. If I was starting up a brand new insurer and I'd raised a few £100 million, wouldn't I want to just go out and buy one of those?
Like 100%. And this dream or this idea has been around for a while, right? So this idea or conception of, wouldn't it be nice if all of these components were available in a modular capability where you could get the right data, you could get the right kind of pricing, technical capabilities, and so forth, and get them up and running without having multi-year, multi-million kind of a spend outflow? Wouldn't that be nice, right? And that's been like going on for 10, 20 years now in terms of how the industry is slowly moving in that direction. And I generally do think that now, frankly, after a long period of time, for the first time, we can say that you're very close to, if not already there. You have enough of a value in the ecosystem, and Google has a very, very broad ecosystem, including the IVN, like Industry Value Network ecosystem, that also reinforces this thing. But you have a pretty strong ecosystem that brings the kind of infrastructure layer, the compute and storage capabilities, the kind of AI capabilities, whether it's Gemini, the IDP side, like Indigo and so forth, along with all the kind of goodness of Aon in terms of data, analytics, CAT modeling, pricing, and so forth. And you can actually start to get to a point where you can have a conversation around what can I get out of the box? How quickly can I go up and running with many product lines? And that conversation has changed from multi-year and multi-million to, weeks and months. And that's a big difference.
That's huge, I think. And then, but then you can't sell that to incumbent insurance companies, and unless and I'm always amazed that more insurers don't do this. They set up a greenfield site and start, moving business to it. But what's the right balance between that vision and then the incumbent world?
And that's the big disconnect that Gary was talking about, right? The whole point around like, hey, we have fax machines and we need blockchain, right? Like that's kind of where we're coming back to. And it's actually quite interesting, right? Like when you start looking at each of the layers of the problem, you're actually able to go quite a bit far down the tech stack, right? Like going all the way to having a data strategy, for example, that folks talked about, having more of your systems running in digital and cloud infrastructure, having less dependency on legacy providers and so forth. So that dealering conversation, and I'm sure like others will chime in here, Martin and team, but we're seeing that actually make progress. It's not we didn't get here in a day. We got here in 30, 40 years, and I think we'll get out of this in 5, 10 years. But I think we're making very significant progress. And this ecosystem strategy, frankly, goes a long way in helping accelerate that journey.
Martin, I know you can't tell us who the clients are, but you've had people come to you and say, glue them all together and come back and talk to me.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I agree with everything Farooq's sort of laid out there. I think all the time, even the guys who've still got some legacy, right? They still want to get to that panacea type whereby you put in the total new tech in. But on the greenfield side, especially new guys coming to market, there's at least one, if not two, that we're working with at the moment, where that most definitely is the aim. I don't think also that when you look at the guys who have got more of the legacy type tech, the answer may not be to remove all of that, because some of that tech is doing a very, very good job for them. But and what you may want to do is to add your underwriting workbench, as it was, to the front end of the legacy tech, and then you've got two options, right? You could then, over time, in a risk-averse way, you can transform and move, or you could just remain and service that legacy technology. With regard to the ecosystem as well, I mean, we're able to, if we want to, and the customer really wants us to, we're able to prime and contract across all the different elements that we bring together, and we would also even look at taking the legacy technology under management as well. And so I think it does depend on the organisation and the process that they're at. But something that was mentioned earlier, I think it is extremely important for both, obviously, the new guys, but the existing organisations to ensure that they've moved into the modern technology.
You've got a slightly different problem, Grant, in the sense that there's no way you're going to walk in the world and someone's going to play on, carrier's going to play on your ecosystem. So there's going to be things that the carriers will trust you with and be happy for you to do, things that they won't. How do you manage all of that? What's your thinking?
I think we have to look at is that, there's over 3,000 plus insurers and reinsurers doing business with Aon. So these organisations want to be able to do business in an easier way, in a more transparent way. So anything that improves, how they deal with Aon and the marketplace in general is a big benefit to them. So, that's their starting point. They want to be working with us. So when you look at how you achieve that is, we want to make their lives easier in the fact that if we can then start, so we don't need to own the end-to-end chain, and nor do we expect to. But what we're looking at is, we have, instead of just sending out the submission, why don't we, within our pricing capabilities, we'll bring in the submission, we'll add to that some value through some of the other data analytics we can provide, we'll technically price it, and we'll deliver that to the insured or the secondary market, wherever we're delivering it to, within that package. So it allows, it makes doing business with Aon considerably easier. It makes it more efficient. It allows, our brokers to start becoming more like trusted advisors than people doing data analytics work like underwriters, and to be able to, to talk to them about opportunities, how best to manage their capital. So I think it brings that new level of all the capabilities that Aon has into the marketplace. And by, collaborating with my colleagues here and other organisations, that's the ideal way of us doing that. We don't need to build an underwriting workbench. We don't need to, they might not agree, there's not, one company can't do all of it. Perhaps Unqork and Google might not quite agree with that, but, it's collaborating across the market, and Martin with AdvantageGo. So it's collaborating with these organisations, and delivering that Aon experience as people are doing business with anyway. So let's make it easier and spend more time focusing on the good things like risk assessment, capital management, not getting a PDF into a submission format.
So I'm going to ask you all the same question to finish with. Less than 1 minute each. If we keep building out ecosystems and you all have ecosystem strategies, Martin, what does it look like in 5 years' time? What have you got in 5 years' time?
So,
microphone.
It could be very different to what it's like now. I'd say what we've got to think about is that the opportunity, I believe, and it's front and centre for us, that's the way to deliver the best benefit to the customer. So what it could look like in 1 year to the same customer, it could look very different in 3 years or 5 years. And I think that's the exciting part, that technology is going to change so much, and you will be able to move out and into different technologies, and that will mean changing the ecosystem.
Farooq, how about you? How do you see it? Do you think insurance, for those who get it right, can insurance be delivered better? And how?
I think that's the big opportunity, right? I think we have spent a lot of time figuring out risk transfer and capital management and technology and ecosystems and all of that, right? But I think the big value here now, what we can all do better, is the value prop for customers, the insured, right? Both in terms of pre-event and pre-risk, in terms of better risk reduction and so forth, as well as like post, in terms of remediation and all the kind of post-claims activity. I think that's where, if we do this right, we're spending less time. The whole point of kind of building an ecosystem is you spend less time on it, and you spend more of the time on the good stuff, right? So that's kind of where we're headed.
If Andy gives you lots of budget to build an ecosystem, what will you spend it on, and what will it look like in 5 years' time?
Well, I'm sure he will do. We've got to go back to sort of revolutionise the risk transfer. And I think without underpinning the whole nature of the conversation today and the whole basis of what InsTech is built on, it's really the whole point of the ecosystem is to get away from that constantly worrying about the tech, the data, how do we get it to them. So, it's all about, to Farooq's point, making the end user experience, from insureds through brokers through to the secondary market much easier. So you can focus on managing risk, you can focus on the good things, not worrying about how data is getting from A to B. So you could argue in 5 years' time, you might be out of a job, Robin, I don't know. We might not be talking about technology. Well, you might go back to being a lawyer again, I don't know. Might be out of technology and really looking at, joking aside, but that's what it can deliver, realising that the investment that's been made, the shareholder value, and people can then focus on the money making or the more interesting risk assessment part of the job, not constantly talking about how they move PDFs around.
If I'm still talking about ecosystems in 5 years' time, something's gone terribly, terribly wrong. Martin, Farooq, Grant, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.